So today's video, we're going to talk about why I'm only going to be publishing coloring books in 2025. And if coloring books are a pursuit that you're interested in, then I'm going to bring you the latest information regarding selling coloring books, the reality, debunking a few myths, my plans going forward, results that I've had with recent coloring books. There's a lot that's going to go into this video. But first, what we're going to touch upon is the viral factor of those kind of trendy square books that you see on Amazon and on YouTube. We're going to talk about sales leeching, which is a super powerful way of making a lot more sales with your coloring books. We're going to talk about building an absolutely huge email list so that eventually you can have your own website, your own store, and start seeing sales away from Amazon, building a real business. We're going to talk about how I've managed to get the cheapest ads that I've ever had from specifically coloring books, even in the most competitive parts of the year. We'll talk about the downsides, of course, and then we're going to end with the biggest reason that I'm doing this. So if you're new to the channel, my name is Chris. I've been self-publishing for over 10 years through Amazon. However, in the last 2 to 3 years, I've been focused on selling pretty much coloring books. So from 40 coloring books, we've had over 100,000 units sold in that period. So everything that I talk about on this channel is actively what I'm doing and what I plan to do going into 2025 and beyond. So just something that I want to note here, because I think it is super important that when you're taking a look at these type of videos from people that you don't know on the internet, like myself, it is important that you are getting results, stats, and observations from people who are actively talking about their own journey from books that they've published themselves. So everything in the videos that I'm sharing with people, they are results, stats, and observations from my own books, specifically coloring books that have been published in the latter part of 2024, so that you know the information I'm giving here is 100% relevant and we're not talking about theory in any parts whatsoever in these videos. So with that in mind, I want to talk about the viral factor of these kind of square, bold and easy coloring books. And they don't even have to be bold and easy. I think we're kind of shifting to most coloring books going into this 8.5 by 8.5 format. So this is the stats for a book that I published in November of 2024. So extremely recent stats here. But the point I want to make is that when we enter into these kind of niches, when we do things in a specific way, we have the chance to kind of make some of our books go viral and increase our organic sales. So to give you some perspective here, the stats for, I think it's December, we're looking at 900 sales, 630 from the United States. Now, pretty much all of my advertising campaign money has gone into the US marketplace. So an interesting observation here, which I think you're going to love, is that we've had sales in the UK, France, Canada, Netherlands, Spain, etc., all organically. Now, how has that happened? So these are some pretty obscure marketplaces to get organic sales in. Now, when it comes to these books that people absolutely love sharing, that they love gifting, they love showing off on social media, what I found is that I did a little bit of research on my own pen name. I typed it into TikTok and into YouTube, and I found that people were actively coloring in these books without there being any incentive, because they just loved coloring them. They loved the books so much and they want to share them with the rest of their followers. So what was happening, and maybe this is slightly theory, but I can see that from these marketplaces, what I think has happened is that people are buying these books because of the viral factor of people sharing them on TikTok and YouTube. So this is going to open up some very interesting pursuits in 2025 where we can actually contact influencers, because imagine how things are at the moment. People are actively willing to promote our books for free, these square viral books for free. Now, if we incentivized these influencers, bigger influencers, to share our books as well, I think the potential for the social media pursuit is very large in 2025, and something I'm going to be exploring massively for this year. So that's something to consider when you're creating a coloring book. You need to be creative, you need to be unique, and when you do things this way, people want to share it with the world. Now, if you create the same shit that everyone else has already created, they're not going to be too proud of it, they're not going to show it off, and you're not going to get these kind of viral sales from social media. Here's another interesting source of traffic that I'm going to call sales leeching. Now, when we talk about getting our books ranked on Amazon, we only talk about getting ranked for keywords. Now, what I've noticed is that the amount of times that my new books are showing up in these frequently bought together but more so customers also bought and read section here is quite a lot. Now, if you take a look at some of the bigger coloring book brands like Coco Wire or Vivi Tinter, I think the other one is, they have a lot of traffic going to their listings. Now, what I was finding with these coloring books that I've been making is that they show up in the customers who also read section here. Now, think of it this way. People are already interested in the item that they've clicked on, so the Coco Wire book, for example, and they are getting a stupendous amount of traffic. So if you show up with a book in the same niche here, there's a very high chance that people are going to go through and buy your book as well. And I think this is something we really don't talk about enough, because we only talk about keyword being ranked for different keywords, but this is super powerful stuff as well. And this is just another one of the reasons why I never really care about the whole saturation thing or AI taking over or anything like that, is because what I found from recent books is that if there are more good books being produced that kind of go viral, then I have a chance of showing up in this section, which means more traffic for me, which means more sales. So when you have the right product, the right offering, you too can leech off of other people's listings in the best way possible, of course. So that's just another one of the reasons why I love selling coloring books, and will probably do nothing but that in 2025, is because the exposure that you can get is incredible. Now, I will preface all of this by saying that you cannot offer a bad product and expect your books to go viral, to show up in these sections here. You have to have something unique that makes sense in the niche that you're targeting, because if you're making the same things that everyone else has already made, people aren't going to buy your book. It's not going to show up here. They're not going to post it on social media, etc, etc. So we'll talk about that actually toward the end of the video. But having that understanding of what a quality and unique product is, and sometimes this can just come down to how you present your book cover, because that's the first thing that people see. So one of the reasons that I created the Raydog membership was to help people understand and get to this point a lot sooner of creating these books that have the chance of going viral. So that's one of the reasons that I created the Raydog membership, is to give independent publishers the absolute best chance possible of making sales through Amazon and beginning to build a business away from Amazon. So we have tons of course content from day number one, all my proven strategies, private rooms and weekly coaching calls where you can get direct feedback from me on what you're doing, and other successful sellers as well. So on top of all this, we have an incredible Discord community where you can come in, you can get feedback on your book covers, your advertising stats, your titles, your subtitles, whatever it is that you need feedback on, you can get feedback from me and other successful sellers. So this community has been a game changer for a lot of people coming in who were completely clueless. They were being demotivated, weren't making any sales, didn't know how to run the advertising campaigns, didn't know if their book covers were any good, if their advertising stats were worth continuing with or not. People coming in and seeing a huge difference in the results that you're having. Some people making their first 1,000 sales, some people making their first few sales, some people making their first $1,000 per month. It's a fantastic place to be. If you want to get involved, it's chrisraydog.com. Feel free to check that out. So that's sales leeching, which I find super interesting, and it is super powerful stuff. I can't literally say that this is definitely where sales are coming from, but if you think of this logically, it's very, very, very likely that a lot of sales are coming from these type of places. Okay, so that leads me on to the possibility of building a huge email list and taking your business away from Amazon, which is what you should be thinking about for the long term. Okay, super important stuff. If you want that predictable income, you want a safe income, eventually you'll have to start selling away from Amazon. You can't rely on this completely. So here's the thing: lower priced books, so coloring books in particular, they're not necessarily a bad idea. So specifically, if you are just planning to sell books on Amazon, that's the only thing that you aspire to do, which is fine, then I'd recommend that people do try and have a high price as possible to make as much money through Amazon as possible. However, when building a huge email list and keeping people in your brand's ecosystem, so building a huge email list and then having them pretty much buy exclusively through your website. Now, there's nothing to say that having slightly lower priced books can't lead to more money in the long run. So for example, a lower priced book can lead to more sales, which leads to more email signups, which leads to more customers, and therefore faster growth away from Amazon. So most of my books are priced around $7.99. Some drop to $6.99. Depends how well they're selling. But every single day, because we're selling so many of these type of viral books, which is another reason that I love doing these square coloring books, we're getting people signing up with their email address, with their phone number every single day so that we can market to them in future and take them away from Amazon. So that is something inside of the membership that we're going to be exploring massively in 2025, helping people to build a huge email list, to help people create their own website and be financially stable, which means that you have to be away from Amazon. I'm aware that most people don't run into problems with their Amazon account. However, it's still Amazon's game, and if they decide to change it at any point, if they do decide to block your books or terminate your account, you're not going to have anything, which is why I encourage people from day number one to start collecting emails. So we have some live calls inside the membership that people can go back and check on how I set my email captures up. Pretty much everything you need is inside those live calls, but going forward, we're going to have course content for people as well. So really, whatever you're doing, you need to think about your long-term goals and operate with that in mind. And like I said, if you're just selling on Amazon, then you should probably look to have a premium pursuit with a slightly higher price for your coloring book. So $8.99 all the way up to possibly $12.99. However, if you are thinking about that growth away from Amazon, there's nothing particularly wrong with being slightly more competitive with your pricing. So another one of the reasons that I enjoy doing coloring books so much is because I found that I can get the cheapest advertising campaigns that I've ever had. So I already know someone's going to comment saying that they can't get a low cost per click and this is bullshit. Actually, inside of the membership, I showcase every single book that I publish, my main pen name, so that people can see that this is not theory, this is actively what I'm doing and what other successful publishers are doing. There's nothing hidden here. However, these are just the stats from my advertising campaigns in December of 2024. So this is by far the most I've ever spent on 1 month. However, it's made sense to spend this much because the advertising metrics were adding up and saying that it's okay, basically okay, for me to carry on spending whilst operating at a break-even point. So as you can see, the cost per click is super low because of the type of campaigns that I've been running. What I found from doing this, and I'm talking specifically with slightly lower priced coloring books here, there has to be a very specific strategy to make this work for you. But what I found is that sometimes with advertising, it can be, especially on Amazon ads, it's very temperamental. One day you can get 40 clicks and no sales. The next day you can get 50 clicks and 10 sales. So the reason that I utilize the strategies that I do is to make room for those days that aren't consistent, because what you'll find is that if you have a low cost per click, you can have those days where the ads aren't converting that well for whatever reason, but still maintain a low ACoS overall. And like I said, all of these strategies, they're included inside of the Raydog membership. The course content that comes from day number one of the Raydog membership goes over the exact strategies. However, the purpose of the membership is more so about your specific situation. Okay, so just because you've gone through a course and you've read some tips, it doesn't mean that you're going to necessarily know how to apply it to your specific situation, which is why we offer what we do in the membership so that you can get direct feedback on your specific scenario. However, I do think it is good to have an outline, and like I said, all this is included from day number one inside the membership. So again, it's another one of the reasons why I like doing the whole coloring book thing. So these are automatic ads mostly. I don't use the manual advertising campaigns because I find that the cost per click can get a little bit too high. So even if the conversions are good with a manual campaign, I find that I can still actually be losing money doing that, which can become extremely stressful. So that's why I do the strategies, do the advertising campaigns the way that I do them. Whilst all of this sounds fantastic, we do of course need to look at some of the downsides to publishing coloring books on Amazon so that you can be paired and prepared with reality here. So books are going to fail. I don't think this is specific to coloring books. Now, if you have a premium offering, what I found is that around 1 in 5 books will go on to do pretty well. So I'm talking about making over $500 profit per month. Now, that doesn't mean that the other books are losing money. What I found with coloring books is that eventually people will go back and buy the other books, and eventually you can make your investment back. But when we talk about the failure percentage, what I'm talking about is the books that don't take off and do really, really well. Okay. So no matter what you hear, quick, cheap, and not particularly good books are not going to sell that well. So I think a lot of us have been misled into thinking that we can create something really quickly in Canva or just pull some images from Creative Fabrica, which I don't recommend anyone does, and then go and make a ton of sales like Coco Wire are doing. This is a premium pursuit. Now we're here to make good money. So we have to really think about offering the absolute best product that we can. We need to enter into niches that have got traffic going to it. And then we need to have our unique selling point for our books. That's what works for me. That's what works incredibly well for other people as well. And again, this is another one of the reasons why I highly recommend that you do join a community where you can get feedback on what you're doing, because you want to be taken from a place where you have an average offering to a place where you have an incredibly good offering. And the gap between those 2 points, it's really not that hard to get to once you actually have some feedback on what you're doing, because a lot of people will go through their publishing journey not realizing that what they are creating is absolutely not particularly good. Okay, so another one of the downsides with coloring books is that a lot of the books are low price. So I'm not saying that you can't offer something premium and have a premium price point, because I think you can. However, when it comes to these kind of square books, most of them are kind of $7.99 or $8.99 at the highest point. So another downside here is I don't think there's actually much flexibility when it comes to advertising strategies. I don't think you can come into this, create a ton of manual campaigns and do extremely well for a prolonged period. So the strategy that I'm running at the moment for my ads revolves around getting that low cost per click, which primarily involves targeting other people's products in similar niches. But regardless of that, I still think outside of that, you have to have a strategy in place where you decide, actually, I can't keep spending money on these ads. I have to stop and move on to the next project. Whereas I think with like a higher content book, something that's selling for like $20, you have a lot more room for this error, a lot more room for this profit margin to get taken up. But with coloring books, I do think you have to run a specific type of campaign. I don't really see many people talking specifically about coloring books when it comes to your advertising campaigns. So with that in mind, I want to talk about the big one, the big reason that I love doing coloring books, the big reason that I'm going to be pursuing them away from Amazon, on Amazon as well, of course. And that reason is creativity. So I've said to people before that being creative when it comes to doing coloring books, it can be literally life changing. So if you're already part of the membership, you would have seen the recent books that I've published and how well that they're doing, and you would have seen the creativity that's gone into them. It's not ridiculous. You don't have to think insanely outside of the box, but you do have to do something a little bit different to catch the customer's attention. Okay, so with coloring books, there is really an unlimited amount of creativity here. You can be the first into a niche. You can be someone that creates a ton of new angles on existing niches. There's just a ton that you can do with coloring books, and that is definitely a good thing. It's been the biggest reason that I've been able to sell the amount of copies of books, being able to sell new books in 2024, and why in 2025 that's going to continue is because it allows for a ton of creativity to create a unique product that the marketplace hasn't seen before. And again, that's one of the reasons why some of my books, they get that kind of viral exposure on TikTok and YouTube, is because people love these new things that come in. So if you're someone that's creating these shitty, bold and easy coloring books that people have done a million times before and you don't have any unique angle to them, it's unlikely that people are going to want to share these, and unlikely that people are going to want to buy them in the first place. So what I found with other niches, and I'm not saying that you can't put a unique selling point onto other niches, I just find that they're quite rigid by nature. So things like maybe word searches, for example, they are what they are. There's not that much that you can do with them. Of course, there are a few things you can do to stand out in those niches, but specifically with coloring books, I think the world is pretty much your oyster. And like I've already said, creativity can be life changing. And I actively encourage as many people as possible who are publishing to get creative, especially if you are doing coloring books. So this is one of the reasons why I share my main pen name, the one that makes me a full-time income, inside of my membership. And on my live calls, I talk about the new books that I'm releasing. I pretty much do a new case study for every new book that I release, so that people can come in and see the unique angles that I put onto my books, the thought process that goes into this, and of course everything else in terms of launching the books, etc, etc. So again, if you want to check this out, I think you're going to be mega surprised at what we can do for you, what we can do for your publishing business in 2025. It's chrisraydog.com. Go ahead, check it out. It's in the link below, and I'll hopefully see you in there very soon.